started off as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and
I'm just trying to figure out what's in her mouth.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Aquilini.
No, he's a good human being, is what he would say about himself, I'm sure.
Who's hosting this thing?
Take charge, Kevin, would you? Jesus.
First time we ever met those guys. That was the major drunken pub argument.
I think you guys are the worst.
I'm gonna have to probably watch some Canucks hockey, unfortunately.
Just making friends left, right, and center, and probably some enemies as well.
Tell him to shut up. He needs to hear that every once in a while.
Off to a good start.
All right. We are live.
It's okay to talk when it goes live.
Shit and fuck.
Time of the swear 1 minute.
Like I was what I was going to do, and welcome to the Hockey Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at podcast_hockey, Facebook.com the Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com the Hockey Podcast, where we are currently sitting at the 100 and Ben Sherratt of subscribers. And we can subscribe to the audio, of course, shortly after. I was going to warn everyone. There would be a lot of shits and fucks being said by Devin tonight as the Montreal Canadiens, down 3-1 in this series. Fans in the stands for the first time in a hockey game in 444 days. And there were Leaf fans there too, not only Habs fans, but there were Leaf fans there as well. Pulled off a 1994-esque 3-2 overtime victory over the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I say that, and I'll get into this, because it was very resemblant to their 1994 way that they won the Stanley Cup. Allow a lot of shots, Waugh stood on his head, get one shot in overtime, and win. That's what they did the entire 90s. But anyway, we'll get into that. There's a lot to discuss from this game and some interesting news coming out of headlines as well, and some breaking Canucks news, it looks like, as well. So we'll get to you, Devin, in a second. We'll say hello to Sean. How are you?
Well, hello, Kevin. I'm glad we're having an emergency podcast to discuss the imminent signing of Vasily Podkolzin.
Yeah, exactly. We decided to break into our Saturday evening to do that. There was no hockey game on tonight. You're just you're just rubbing it in on poor Devin. I feel like that's not fair to Devin.
Well, it's what brothers do, though. So
I'll keep that in mind next time you have some shit hitting the fan on your side of the end here with the Canucks, man.
It's not gonna take long. Trust.
Well, let's get. It's funny because according to this was Twitter tonight. It was either you were for the Leafs or you were absolutely against the Leafs. There was no in between from Twitter. It was so. Let's get your perspective, Devin. Tell us from your view what happened.
Oh my God. Well, it's nothing's changed from regular season or any past years or anything like that. You love Leafs or you hate them. I believe that it's very similar to the Canucks. You love them or hate them. And so the amount of hate that's going on right now, even from Leafs fans, totally warranted. Sheldon Keefe, what the fuck are you doing? What are you doing challenging that? I'm sorry. That made no sense to me whatsoever. If Jack Campbell was trying to get back into the net and he couldn't because of the Montreal Canadiens player, I believe it was Tyler Toffoli, he was in the way, then call it. That was completely fucking stupid. Mitch Marner, what the fuck are you doing? Honestly. Right after you have a challenge that goes against you, you have all the time in the fucking world. Get it down the ice. Get it deep. Don't flip it up in the air. Like play it safe. For the love of God. Honestly, you're a professional hockey player that's making $11 million fucking dollars a year for what? For what? The regular season? You've done nothing in postseason. You've done absolutely nothing. I'm looking at it right here. Elimination series. the Elimination Chamber, as Sportsnet has called it. There's been 6 elimination games within this core group. Okay, 6. Mitch Marner, 0 goals, 1 point, -5, 13 shots on goal. Not to mention Austin Matthews in those 6 eliminating games in the playoffs, 1 goal, 1 point, -4, 30 shots on goal. And I'm not even going to bring up William Nylander. He's been arguably one of the best players, if not top 3 within this series for the Leafs. Jack Campbell, number 1, period, and stop. TJ Brody, if you notice TJ Brody, it's usually for the bad things. Tonight, he did the fucking good things. He was jumping up in the play. He was actually making a difference within that lineup, and good on him. But if you're relying on TJ Brody to do that for your team, you have to take a look around the dressing room and wondering what the fuck's happening here. It is absolutely unacceptable, that amount of fucking talent on that team, and nothing came out of it. Austin Matthews, where the fuck have you been? Where have you been? For 45 minutes of that fucking game tonight, it was terrible. It was so bad. And I feel like I'm being generous with 45 minutes. I'd say even probably 50 minutes of that game, the Leafs did nothing. Nothing of positive. They couldn't do passes out of their they couldn't pass the puck, period. Defensive zone, neutral zone, even in the offensive zone. Couldn't do fucking anything. The fact that I understand, Nick Foligno, you're hurt. We can tell you're not at 100%. But how effective are you within getting in that lineup and making a difference, even if you are hurt? I understand that you have the passion and the drive to do everything you can, but if you're not going to be beneficial enough to that team and you're not going to help that team, sit the fuck out. Go eat some popcorn. Go talk to John Tavares and ask him how he's doing and when he's going to be back. Because that, John Tavares, that is a massive loss. You as a loss, if you're not 100%, I'm sorry, you're not effective. You can't bang a crash. You can't create energy in that way. You're done. So relying on the past, before this game, the past 2 games, you're relying on your second line. Your second line was Alex Kerfoot, Galchenyuk, and Nylander. And you're relying on that line to be better, to make the team better. Austin Matthews, you need to give your head a shake and wonder what the fuck you're doing here. Honest to God. And Mitch Marner, Hot Take Hockey had a hot take, surprisingly enough, on Twitter today. And he said that along the lines of, if we lose this series, if Toronto Maple Leafs lose this series, Mitch Marner better be on his way out of this fucking city. And I agree to a certain extent. He is not performing in the playoffs. He's not a playoff performer. And so what if you do well within the playoffs here or within the regular season? Playoffs is where it matters. And right now, the top line is not performing the way it should. Zach Hyman, he can only do so much. So I want to give props to Jack Campbell. There it is right there. I don't care. I want Mitch Marner traded if they lose this series. $11 million to just not show up and to be a dumbass when it matters. Bye. That's Hot Take Hockey. He is 100% right. Show up when it fucking matters or get the fuck out.
The one thing I want to say is, in today's completely hyper-analytical, stats-driven the way we talk about hockey, the learning how to win in playoffs is completely under talked about. People do not understand how much it takes to win in playoff hockey, when it matters, when the stress is on, the pressure is on, especially now with you've got only 2,500 fans, but they sounded like fucking 10,000. They sounded like 10,000 fans, and it was great. I fucking loved it, but you could tell that the pressure and the stress was kind of getting to the top end players of the Leafs, and it's unfortunate because it's just building. Like as you said, this is now games. This is now the 6th game in a row they've had a chance to close out a series, and they've blown it. And that play from Marner is going to be played over and over and over again. He had all the time in the world to just pound it into down the ice. All he had to do was take a fucking slap shot. But he tried to be fancy and tried to like flip it, and he didn't get it done, and it cost them. It really cost them. The other thing is, I'm looking at some of the stats from this game, and the Leafs do not play physical enough, not even close. Dev, you talked about how Foligno playing hurt is it can't bang and crash. He had the 2nd most hits on this Leafs team in this game.
Okay, hold on. I just want to say that is not noticeable though. That must be some sort of skewed stat of like, are we on Long Island right now where every single little bump is a fucking hit? I don't know. I didn't notice him at all. So like the eye test is completely different than what the stats say. Sorry, please go.
But it's Galchenyuk had 5 hits, and let me just double check here if that was. Make sure I have the right filters.
No, you're right. You're right.
5-on-5. Yeah. They've got Galchenyuk had 5 hits, and then you've got Matthews, Foligno, and Engvall with 3. Like when I remember watching the Canucks in 2011, they would open up, and you would have 2 or 3 hits per player after at least the forwards after 10 minutes. And then if you compare that to the Habs for tonight, like
Toffoli had 5. Kotkaniemi 4, Suzuki 3. Oh no, I'm hit. Sorry.
Sherrod had 7. Gallagher, Evans, and Petrie had 5 each. Like it's just in playoffs, you need to play physical. In playoffs, you need to play gritty. You need to play dirty. You need to play greasy. And Austin Matthews has the size and the body to do that. Mitch Marner is not the biggest guy, but he can do that. They need to. They need to get in there. They need to create dirty goals. Because that's how you win in the playoffs. Learning how to win in the playoffs is such a big thing that no one talks about anymore. Let's look at the Tampa Bay Lightning. They get swept because they weren't playing that way. Then they go out and they get Blake Coleman. And they became gritty, and they found a way to become great. Kucherov is a dirty as fuck player when he wants to be. That's what the Leafs need from Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, let alone William Nylander, and then once Tavares comes back as well. Morgan Rielly needs to be a dirty as fuck player as well. That's how you win. Like, go back to 2011. Like, I'm a Canucks fan. Let's go back to 2011. You look at the Canucks lost because they got out-dirtied by the Bruins. They got bullied by the Bruins in the final. Right now, the way the Leafs are playing, they're not gonna win because they're gonna get bullied. They're going to because until the officiating changes and the standard officiating changes that allows the skilled players to thrive a little bit more in the playoffs, you need to be able to play dirty. You need to be able to play greasy. The Leafs just can't seem to do that. They've got the size and the size and the players to do it, but when are they going to show up to do that?
And talk about playing hard and greasy, Sarkev, is the loss of Muzzin potentially here is massive.
Huge loss. The other thing, the thing I did want to point out though is the Canadians were playing 4 defensemen pretty much the entire game. Gustafsson and Kulak played 6 minutes in this game, and you couldn't. They did you gotta hit them. You're playing, just wear them out. Just ride them out. Just to get to just wear them down. They didn't do it. That's the part. And the other thing with the Leafs too that is just, they did control the overtime. I will totally agree with you on that. But they kept shooting to Carey Price's glove side, all the time. There was except the one that Matthews had that on the pad there at about 6 or 7 minutes into overtime. But there wasn't a lot that Carey Price was he was fine. He was Carey Price-esque, but they kept shooting to the glove side. As Haley Salvan tweeted out, it's an interesting choice for the Leafs that you keep shooting to the glove side there. And the Canadians, for their part, as much as I don't think that Suzuki, their centers have particularly been spectacular, they're getting the job done when they need to. Kotkaniemi gets Suzuki with the winning goal, game 5, staves them in. Kotkaniemi gets the winning goal, game 6 to force a game 7. They're getting the goals when they need to. And as Kate has pointed out, Cole Caulfield in the chat here, Cole Caulfield, clutch again, gets the assist. Sean and I, for the record, both had him as the Canadians' overtime winner, but he got the assist. So we're half right. But the goals that the Canadians are getting are ugly, other than that Suzuki Caulfield goal, which was it was a little too much, but it was fine. But even the goal, the first goal, that's rugby style, basically. They're crashing the net. They're not. But the Leafs, compared to the Leafs, they're trying to drop pass and make it look cute and have a wonderful Saturday night of spectacular hockey. This is playoff hockey. Hockey. You got to score absolutely ugly goals to win. And I just, I don't think the Leafs know how to. Leafs haven't figured that out yet.
They haven't. Absolutely not. I bitched about this for game 5. The amount of 2-on-1s, the amount of 3-on-1s that they had. 3-on-1s was probably 1. But the amount of 2-on-1s that they had was absolutely insane. Looking for that pretty pass over to the to get it to one of the skill players, and the skill players want to get Austin Matthews. Get pucks on net, for the fuck's sakes. Honestly, it is ridiculous how keep things simple. Simplify everything. You need to do that within the playoffs. Get pucks in deep, bang crash, like Kev said. Get on that defense. They're only playing 4 fucking defensemen. Granted, those 4 defensemen are rugged. They can play that way. Edmondson, Weber, Sherratt play that way, and Petrie. He's a good mix between skill and ruggedness. So I think they're playing scared. It's completely unacceptable the way that they're fucking playing. Now, I want to give credit to the Montreal Canadiens. I think. But
before you do that, can I just interrupt? Though, to just back up something you said, Joel Edmondson as well. They played great, but Joel Edmondson gave up a couple of pizzas. There was one he gave it was a pineapple with barbecue sauce. It was like a wonderful little pizza that he gave to, I think it was Alex Kerfoot in overtime. And Kerfoot, I don't know what he was doing there, but it was like he did nothing with it. So anyway.
Well, Kevin with his pizza takes.
Yes. Well, it was a pizza. It was a nice round pizza. Anyway, we're interrupting poor Devin here.
Kerfoot, he's not really that skilled of a guy. He's a good mix between. He's a middle 6 player, if not a
you
bottom
score,
6
Devin.
Player. I understand that, man, but what we were expecting Kerfoot to all of a sudden just come out of nowhere and just fucking be amazing. That's not what he is. That's not what he does. That's not in his makeup. He's surrounded by skill players. He's a playmaker to give the puck to those players to score. And whatever skill players you have within your middle to bottom 6, sure, okay. But once again, I want to give credit.
Let's give credit to the Canadians. They deserve credit for this, for sure.
Absolutely, they do. They came out hard in that first 5 minutes, and rightfully so within that atmosphere, having fans in the stands. Oh my God! To take it back even further, the national anthem. God, it brought tears to my eyes. It was spectacular. It was beautiful. I was just overcome with emotion, chills, everything. It was beautiful. Really enjoyed that, and for them to come out and have that sort of effort within the Bell Center, in front of the majority of Canadians fans was amazing. As far as a hockey story goes, that's beautiful. I don't know how to say it. But back to the play on ice, like they stuck it to the Leafs for the majority of the game. Like I said, the 40 to 45 minutes of that entire game was all Montreal Canadiens. And I don't want to be one of those people just talking about, oh yeah, the skill team that was supposed to win, it's on them for not playing well enough to beat the other team. As far as if Parallax was on here in the comments, I'm sure he would be appreciating what I'm saying in the sense that there wasn't any appreciation towards the Jets beating the Oilers. But I want to give appreciation to the Montreal Canadiens. They banged, they crashed, they did everything. Carey Price was amazing. They played as a team. They were rolling pretty much 3 lines until the very end. They were rolling 2, and it's a team effort, and it's not relying just on your skilled guys to get it done. It's all up and down the lineup. But before you guys start talking about Montreal, I do want to give credit to Jason Spezza. I thought that he played an amazing game. Overall, he got the first goal. Talk about veteran presence. Talk about putting essence on him to make a difference within the series, and he has been. God, he's been amazing. And when Foligno wasn't doing so well, I thought that he should have been up within that top 6, showing off his skill more so than Nick Foligno was. But what do you guys think about the Montreal Canadiens, Sean?
Well, they definitely controlled the play. Coming into the series, it was all I always said. It was always about how well their young center, their center depth would play. Suzuki's been solid. He's outplayed the Leafs centers for the most part. He's got 2 goals. Kotkaniemi's playing on the wing and has been able to be effective. They've used him in a more controlled sense, but it's worked for him. And then their vets have showed up. Like we talked about that their 4 defensemen. They are 4 big, rough, and tough defensemen. You can't push those 4 defensemen around. Like there's so much like angst and frustration in Habs land about not playing Alexander Romanov, but that top 4 is so they're getting the job done. They're grinding it out. Weber, Petrie, Sherratt, and Edmondson, they're grinding it out and they're getting the job done. Perry being greasy and finding ways. You look at who keeps going on and into these playoffs and especially in the East. Unless the Leafs can figure out how to play greasy, it's going to be tough for them to, even if they find a way to get past Montreal, it's going to be tough for them to get to go farther. But it's just the Suzuki's play. I think Suzuki has played underratedly good in this series. He only has he's got 2 goals. I think it's his only 2 points, I believe.
He has 3 points. He got an assist tonight.
Oh yeah, he got an assist tonight. So it's underratedly good. Like he's finding ways to be effective, and he's been their second most used forward in this whole series. Like the top 4 defensemen are all over 100 minutes in this series, And then you got Danault and Suzuki. And Suzuki is finding a way to be effective, even if he's not necessarily producing all the time. It's been a low-scoring series, but he's found a way. Meanwhile, you look over at it's just the big important players on Montreal are finding ways to make an impact more than the Toronto players, and that's the big difference in this series.
The other thing that I would like to add, as Mario added, we're not talking about this enough, but what Philip Danault has done to Austin Matthews and what that line has done for them on the Matthews-Marner line, it's Guy Carbonneau-esque in terms of like, that's, I'm not saying he's Guy Carbonneau, but that's the Canadian way. They have that shutdown line that does the job against the number one line.
I don't think people realize how good Danault is at that shutdown role.
He
is more of a, like, I don't think that shutdown center is nearly as there's not as many of them in the NHL right now as there has been in the past, but Danault is definitely one of them.
Yeah, he's been outstanding, and I also think the Canadians are willing, very clearly not here to get style points. I kind of like this art. This maybe is where Mario is coming from. Mitch Marner can do the Battle of the Blades. He's skating so well. I think the Leafs I'm just adding to this, to what we're saying. The Leafs are trying to be a wonderful, well-placed, beautiful pizza. The Montreal Canadiens don't care. They don't care.
They're that greasy pizza you get at 2 a.m. after going to the pub, and you're going home. That's the pizza that the Habs are.
They are in Calgary. They would be I don't know if it's still there. The Wicked Wedge. It was down on 17th Avenue. I don't know if that's still there. But
you might be aging yourself there, Kev.
Yeah, that's not there anymore, Kev.
Well, back in the olden times, but down on, if I was going down Granville Street here in Vancouver, where I'm living, grabbing a slice after the pub. It's just, that's what the Canadians are doing, and they're willing to do it. And, I think Dominic Ducharme also deserves some credit here as well. This is a guy that came into a very awkward situation. This is not a fan base that is patient in any way, shape, or form. There were 2 games within. They wanted him gone. And he replaced a pretty good coach in Claude Julien. There were some expectations, especially with the players that have been signed. And he's made some tough decisions. The Romanov one Sean mentioned, but he's keeping Romanov out. I think some people are arguing with that, but that's so far kind of working. And he's using his players to the best of his abilities. And, they got back into this series. Not beautiful, but they did it.
One person we have not talked about one bit yet is Jake Evans. He was third in ice time. Third in ice time.
Oh, God, he's a monster.
The fact that he's back within this Habs lineup is massive. It's huge. And of course, he's on the line with Danault and Gallagher. Danault being the shutdown, and Gallagher's great at shutdown role too. I didn't know how big of a role and how good of a player Jake Evans was until this series, and he's played spectacular. So good on him, and good on Ducharme for recognizing that and knowing exactly how to deploy his players, because Kevin's right. The way that he's constructed this lineup right now is spectacular. And there's no Romanov, thank you. And I mean, rightfully so, because you do have a very similar veteran in Gustafsson. They play a very similar game, and Romanov he has a bit more of a two-way game in comparison to Gustafsson, or Gustafsson. But he's a young player, and I don't think it's a detriment to his development to sit up there and realize what's happening on the ice within these playoffs. So if you're a fan that is looking for him, he'll come. Just give him time, and he'll thrive from this experience, just being around the guys and looking at it from 200 feet away.
We because it's so easy with a Quinn Hughes and a Cale Makar and a Miro Heiskanen and some of these young and a Adam Fox that have come in and have just blown the doors off of how they've played on how they're playing in the National Hockey League. For the most part, that's outlier. You have to develop. You have to, as a defenseman especially, it takes more time than a forward to develop and be ready in the National Hockey League. Jim Rutherford used to never want to draft defensemen. He was like, I'm getting veterans. They're not ready yet. It takes time. Canucks fans will say that with Olli Juolevi. Flames fans can say that with Juuso Välimäki. And this is the same thing with Romanov. There's no doubt of this guy's talent. I have no doubt about it. Even Oiler fans with Evan Bouchard, I think that's the same thing. And you've been looking at
Nurse. It took a while to get to where
absolutely. Yeah, it takes.
And even the superstars that you've talked about, Kevin, Heiskanen and Makar and Hughes, they've all had road bumps as well.
Yep.
Defense is such a tough position to play, especially at the NHL, when you've got especially nowadays when the game is so fast. It does take time, and Romanov will be good. He'll be fine. Like going forwards, they've got a stud there. But when you've got 4 big, strong defensemen that you can lean on for 20 plus minutes a night and 30 minutes in an overtime game, you're good. Like it's hard to go away from that, especially when your feet as a coach, you feel the comfort with them. And just Jake Evans was 3rd in 5-on-5 ice time today. He was 2nd overall on for forwards. Like outside of it was if you get for all situations, it was Philip Deneau at 23-16. Then you've got Jake Evans at 22-40. Like he played a lot. Now a lot of that was his fresh legs. He hadn't played since game 1. And Jake Evans is someone I don't think a lot of people outside of Montreal really know properly. I think most people know him as the guy who got knocked out in that preseason game. Was it not this season, but the season before? But he's a good sort of 3rd, 4th line, bottom 6 player. You can play up the lineup. He's like Mangiapane before he became a top 6 player. He's like Tyler Mott on the Canucks. He's like Josh Archibald on the Oilers. The guy, you need players like that who can go up and down your lineup.
7th round pick in the 2014 draft.
He's only 24.
24 years old. Yeah, he's
Well, it's funny. It's funny, Sean. You say that he's bottom 6, but he's playing a top fucking line role right now. As a 24-year-old, but I understand where you're getting at. You need those players to kind of fill out your lineup, to make sure that you're able to shut down those top end players. And when Hyman was getting just mauled from behind, which I have no idea how that penalty was not called in the second period there. That makes zero fucking sense to me. Good on Jake Evans for getting away with quote unquote murder within the rules of hockey, because that was blatant as fuck.
The other thing we've spent almost 35 minutes not talking about is Carey Price. And there's some people that love him, some people that hate him. You look at what the Montreal Canadiens did in the offseason and spent $12 million in goaltending. This is a guy that, like him or not, when he's in the net, the Canadiens feel, when he's feeling Carey Price the Canadiens feel confident.
which he has
And
been.
you can
this
see that in
entire
overtime.
series.
Yeah.
Oh,
His
absolutely.
positioning has been fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that, Dev.
Go ahead.
No, he's Sean's right. His positioning's unreal. His poise, his focus. Anytime that he feels like he's out of it, or maybe he probably doesn't even feel like he's out of position, he comes and makes a massive save. That save on Spezza early in the series. Just the amount of Carey Price-esque, just the poise that he has that is within him. I know that if you're a Flames fan, we've talked about this on the podcast before, of a David Riddick and his kind of opposite demeanor of a Carey Price, and how frantic that kind of makes you feel a little bit, because he is so David Riddick is so fiery, but Carey Price is just so calm, cool, collective. You kind of wonder, him coming into the league, you kind of wondered, like, okay, does this guy even care? But of course he does. Of course he cares. And it's just like his focus is unlike any other that I've really seen within my lifetime. And if you're going to be successful within the playoffs, you have to have a goaltender that's going to steal your games. And it wasn't during like the majority of, or even 2/3 of the regular game, quote unquote, of the first three periods. But in the overtime, he had to stand on his head. He really did. And I, like, halfway through that overtime period, I was thinking to myself, how's Jack Campbell doing over there? He hasn't faced a shot in X amount of time. He only had made 2 shots within that overtime period that I know of, that I saw, and that I can remember, and one of them went in. It's hard to keep that focus. It's hard to keep that professionalism in check and make sure that you're able to make the saves when you need to, especially when your team is playing that well. And very unfortunate that it went off Bogosian's leg just by a hair. But Carey Price, he deserves all the credit. I would be very surprised if he wasn't one of the 3 stars. I don't know who the 3 stars were, but he definitely deserves one of them.
It was 7:57. Kelly Rudy pointed it out. It was 9:57, I think he said, or it was 3 minutes, 9:57 Eastern or 10:57 Eastern, I think, before was the last regulation time shot, and the next shot on goal was 50 minutes later. So Jack Campbell went 50 minutes without seeing a shot on goal, and then it goes off Bogosian in it.
Yep. I mean, what can you do? Like Carey Price, he had a shot. It was, I believe, it was TJ Brody. It went off of a defenseman's skate, and he had to make a spectacular glove save. It's those little things that make the biggest difference within the playoffs. And God, it's going down to Game 7. Who doesn't love Game 7s? Honestly, like, who doesn't? As much as I'm upset about the Leafs playing the way that they do, or the way that they did, Game 7s are what we live for in the playoffs, and it can be anybody's game. And so, as far as the way that the Toronto Maple Leafs have played within the past 2 games, I'm living on that prayer that anything can happen, because of the way the momentum's going, the way that they're playing 5-on-5, the amount of give a fuck meter, overall, it just doesn't seem like it's there, but it could be there for Game 7, and I really hope it is.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great game. I think that this will be a well-watched game. I think a lot of people are going to be interested in it. I think this will be a spectacular night of hockey, and if you're the Winnipeg Jets, you're just sitting back and enjoying things. And for now, you've got 9 days off between games, and you went through a triple overtime when your last game, so you're just enjoying the fresh legs. So if you're the Jets, you're enjoying this. But I think it'll be a lot of fun, and I think for the Leafs, this is a really This is going to be an interesting game for them. I said interesting again, but this is a very
excitable.
I want to.
What's going to be intriguing to watch is to see how Toronto comes out, because they're at home, but they need to find a way to get they need to get rolling quick. Kevin, after the second period, you said that Toronto, the fact that this game has gone scoreless as long as it did was an advantage to the Habs. You're right. The longer the Habs can continue to stifle the Leafs and keep it low scoring, the better for them.
Yeah, I also think though that this is, I don't want to say that's the best word I have. It's not the right word. I don't think it's franchise altering in a sense is a wrong word, but this is with this core, and you've been in this situation a few times with this core that you haven't been able to get it done. I think that this, if the Leafs don't win this game, there are more questions than answers in Toronto.
I have all the answers.
It's an important. It's an important game. What's that?
I have all the answers.
Well, I know, Devin, you have all the answers.
I have all the answers, and I can give them to you. If that happens, it's not going to fucking happen. But if it happens, talk to me. Bring them on, and I'll give you every single one. And that is what should happen. Not is it going to happen? Who knows? But that's what should happen.
Fair enough.
Does the loser of Game 7 lose their GM?
No. Dubas has too much of a leash there. Bergevin, I feel like he has more of a leash than I think everybody thinks that he does.
Another raid. Look at this.
Beautiful.
From Hot Take Hockey.
What's up?
What's
up, Hot Take Hockey? Oh man, love this shit.
All right.
Tell us in the comments what you guys thought of the game, please.
Yeah, instead of just saying raid, give us some insight here. We would appreciate it.
Anyway. What do the Leafs need to do in Game 7 so that they can move on and we can get Jesse versus Corwin on Bar Down happening with the Leafs versus Jets?
Yeah, I just want to see that. I just want to see Jesse friggin' chug that hot sauce, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw that, but Jesse from Bar Down has bet. I don't know who it was. Somebody that if the Leafs win, he's gonna have to chug a full thing of hot sauce. Oh man,
we touched on this earlier, but since we got a few people in, there was this challenge. Again, it was one that it seemed to me like similar to what happened in game earlier in the series. I want to say game 2 or game 3. It seemed to me you had to look at the goalie before you make that challenge, but there were. I kind of actually I don't think that this was as dumb as the Canadiens challenge, because I do see why they considered it, but I think ultimately the right call was made. I think it was a goal. But mind you, again, I think Devin and I disagreed with this, Sean, but I think Alex Tuch's goal in Game 6 should have counted, and it didn't. So sometimes you never know.
Well, when we were talking in our chat, I always said I didn't know, because I could see why they would call it back, and based off of everything they've talked about in the past. And past rulings, I was not sure. I was leaning towards it's a goal just because Campbell went out of the crease and didn't make a big enough effort to get back into the crease. Had he made a bigger effort to get back into the crease, they would have gotten that call. But because he didn't, I think that's why they went that way. But I think it wasn't the full on desperation, like, oh my God, like emotional challenge that the Habs had earlier in the series, but it wasn't a slam dunk. Like this was a bad call. It needs to be reversed challenge that most coaches will they go that way as opposed to like more of a toss up like this one was.
And watch that potentially being the turning point within that series or within the series. Honestly, it well like because you had that happen, you had the call stand, you had the penalty against the Leafs, and then you had Marner doing the fucking stupid flip out of the zone into the over top of the Habs bench into the stands bullshit flip. So overall it's just I frustrating as a Leafs fan, but to York Baller, who do you think who thinks Leafs will win Game 7? Once again, we touched on this. Anybody's fucking game, honestly. It really is. I think that the Leafs have a slight edge. Is 51% Leafs, but that just might be my bias.
I like what Matt Cote said, that the Leafs need to get going right from the drop of the puck.
Yes.
If they can get going and build some momentum, and even if it's just one goal, if they can get one goal, I think that's huge. That they'll give them the confidence. The longer that they stay, the longer that they're struggling and they can't, even if if the Habs score first and Montreal ties it up, that's still advantage Habs because they're still able to control things. If Toronto can control the play a little bit more, and find a way to just grind it fucking out, and they'll find that they'll be able to do it. But it's just Montreal tonight was able to control the play, was able to really find a way to just grind down the stars, the skilled players of Toronto, and that's why they won.
Yeah. One thing I do want to talk about before we move on here is I've saw on Twitter a couple of times people saying that expose Marner to the Kraken. That is completely fucking stupid. You're gonna expose one of your arguably best 4 players on this roster for nothing. Stop it. Stop it right now.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Put your beer down, put your alcohol down, don't tweet, just calm down, get your reflection, and then you're not protecting Marner. Yeah.
No.
All right. Let's move on. We've got some other things that did happen here. Seth Jones, this is the bigger news. Sorry, Sean. This is bigger news. Seth Jones, Elliot Friedman. Seth Jones for now is opting for free agency. So his situation is right now he has a 5.4 cap hit. He's got a modified no movement clause. And starting this year, he can submit a list of 10 teams he cannot be traded to. It's an interesting situation. Columbus has 3 first-round picks this year. They did not have the best year. And I'm putting that mildly. It'll be interesting to see where they are in the lottery. In terms of this, I guess there's 3 ways to go. If Seth Jones is traded, when is it? Or is he traded at all? I'll start with Sean. I think we have 3 different views on this.
I think Columbus tries to keep him. They've got John Davidson just came back into the fold as the president of Columbus. They're going to be bringing in a new coach. I think John Tortorella overused Seth Jones. He's not a number 1 defenseman, but he's a very good top 4 defenseman. And I think people don't quite understand that when they look at the analytics. They look at his time on ice, they look at his analytics and go, "Oh, he's horrible." No. He needs to be someone that you don't play 25 minutes a night every night. If you play him in a top 4 role, not a top number 1 role, I think he's very useful. He can play both penalty kill, power play, all situations, but he's not someone you need to be relying on for 25 plus minutes a night. I think with a new coach who can spread out the ice time better, I think he'll benefit from more. But if he does not want to sign there, they have to explore the trade. I think they want to try and keep him as much as they want to see. I think they will try and go to see how things go with the new coach with going into next season. I think that would be the first option that they would want to do in Columbus. But they have to explore the trade option this offseason. There are going to be teams who would love to get a right shot top 4 defenseman going into that next season. And I'm sure we could name two teams that we follow right here. We got the Flames and the Canucks. Both need good, would both benefit from having a top 4 right shot defenseman. So whether or not that they can find, I think I might be talking myself into this, like saying that I could definitely see a Seth Jones trade this summer, but the price would have to be high because Columbus is not a better team without Seth Jones, unless they're getting someone a younger right shot defenseman back that can develop into Seth Jones.
There's an interesting take from a friend of the podcast, Cam Robinson, I'm just going to point out to here. That I'll point here. The discrepancy between, and sorry, I will do this better. Sorry, I'm being my usual Ron McLean here. The discrepancy between eye test and analytic folks on Seth Jones is amazing, which 100% means some team is going to pay a bushel for him via trade and then extend him to a deal that will age terribly. So I think it's interesting. That's an interesting point because you probably, if you are acquiring Seth Jones, you are going to have to look at an extension. This isn't a guy you necessarily want to do a rental to. But you are also that's probably one of those trades that I think at the end of the day, you may look back and you're probably going to overpay for. That's the
let's talk. I responded to that tweet. Sorry, Kev. I responded to that tweet. Analytics are only results. Usage and systems have just as much to do with how a player plays, and you need the whole picture. I talked about how earlier about how Seth Jones is under. I feel Seth Jones is underrated because of how hyper analytical we are with our assessment of players with the underlying stats without looking at how a player is used, whether or not it's defensive assignments off or overusage. John Tortorella rides his stars. John Tortorella will play the skates off his players, play the feet off his players. Seth Jones is one of those guys that he does that with. He's, as I said, he's not a top pair defenseman, but if you can acquire a Seth Jones and get and build him into your defense core, even if it's an overpayment, and you've got other players in your defense core that will work with him, it's going to work out. If you acquire Seth Jones to be your number one defenseman, that's where you're going to overpay, and that's where it's going to age poorly. Sorry,
Devin.
Oh, I can go. That's nice. That's awesome. Yeah, he's a top 2 defenseman, realistically. Like he gets ridden hard in Columbus, but realistically, who else do they have there? Who else do they have that is a good 5-on-5 defenseman? Werenski? No, he's a good second pairing defenseman that can play the power play very well. Realistically, who else outside of that? They traded David Savard to Tampa Bay, and he was arguably very underrated and one of the best 4 defensemen on that team. So I disagree, Sean. I think he is a top 2 defenseman. It's just I think you are in the right track in saying that he needs to have the right supporting cast and go into go to a team that has a good solidified top 3 defensive core, and he will thrive there. He will absolutely thrive. He's not gonna be playing fucking 26 minutes a night. He'll be playing 20, and that 6 minutes is going to make a massive difference overall throughout the entire year of him getting worn down over and over and over again. It's the Ben Sherratt, or not Ben Sherratt. It's Thomas Chabot mentality is that he is getting outplayed by his own coach. So I disagree with that guy's take. I forget his name.
Cam Robinson.
Yep, Cam Robinson, friend of the show. Love the guy. Hey, Cam. Just the fact he's only 26 years old. God, he's gonna be 27, 28 when he signs that deal. So the fact he's gonna be overpaid for maybe 1 or 2 years, and you're gonna get the majority, not the majority of his career, but you're like, he's still a good fucking defenseman, and especially if you surround him with good defensive pairings, then he'll thrive within that. He is a horse, and he will do anything that you want him to do within the game. And realistically, Jeff Crest compared to Darnell Nurse, I see the exact same thing. He's very, very similar within that realm of defenseman that is very gritty, but he can get the job done. So I think that as far as is he going to get traded in the offseason? Potentially, depending on how Jarmo Kekalainen really how those talks go with the 2 camps. But if Jarmo Kekalainen thinks that he could potentially make a run for the playoffs next year, he'll do it, and he'll keep Seth Jones. And if they are a bubble team or if they are out, they'll trade him at the deadline.
Yeah, the first step is getting the coach in Columbus, because that's the first thing, is unknown who that will be. It will be an interesting situation in terms of who will be interested, who will have the cap space as well. That's the other. We have this with all the other ones. With Jack Eichel, it's the same thing. I think it's a cap issue as well. And who are the 10 teams that are on his list? That's the other thing as well. But so I think it'll be interesting. It is a situation, though, in the offseason, if you're going to do it with the defenseman in this draft, and you're depending where you are, you might be able to do it and at least have a prospect in waiting to right away, depending on where you're going with Seth Jones, with your organization the next few years, because you've got your Owen Powers, your Brant Clarks, your Simon Edvinsons. There's a number of really good defensemen in this draft that you can do that if you're trading Seth Jones, you've got a replacement there.
Yeah, I think the way I look at it is, Seth Jones has 10 teams he can't be traded to, so there's still 20 going into this offseason, 22 teams that he can be traded to. But I realistically, I think he's going to. I think I've talked myself into this. I think we will see a Seth Jones deal this offseason. I think there will be enough teams interested. I think there will be enough teams willing to offer up not only futures but a roster player in return. I cheer for a team who I think that could do it. I think that I know.
Who are you giving up? Who are you giving up?
Nate Schmidt in the pick, man.
No,
plus more.
That doesn't get it.
That doesn't
Nate
get the
Schmidt,
fucking deal, man.
No, like stop shutting this down before I actually talk about this. Like,
okay,
Nate Schmidt is a guy who can play both sides. Yeah, he's a little bit older, but he's also locked in long term, and I think that's big for Columbus. Then you add in more pieces there. I think Benning will take a run at him. I honestly do. Whether it happens or not, it remains to be seen. You know who else will take a run at him, Devin?
Calgary.
Your boy, Brad Treliving.
I'm not debating that whatsoever. I'm saying that there's not enough pieces that you would be happy with that they would be offering
in Vancouver.
Yes,
you'd have to give up. It'd be Schmidt and a first rounder and a prospect for sure. Sure.
Yep.
For Calgary,
what prospect would you throw in there, Sean? That would be good enough.
I'd throw in Coland. I'd throw in anyone other than Pod Colson.
Hoglander?
So hold on, Devin.
Hoglander's not a prospect, man. He's an NHL player.
I just wanted to ask.
You're not. No, I'm talking about prospect who hasn't played an NHL game. The only player I wouldn't trade, the only prospect I wouldn't trade who isn't already a bona fide NHLer, and Niels Hoglander is a bona fide NHLer, is Pod Colson. And everyone else is fair game.
I can guarantee you that he's going to get more than that.
If that's the case.
Okay,
that's the case.
Devin, what from your perspective? What would Calgary have to give up?
Oh God, it would be a first. It'd be probably a Dylan Dubé or a Mangiapane, and
Dubé doesn't get
most likely. You know, I don't even know. They're probably asking for Valimaki.
I think it'd be Valimaki, a first, or and then another prospect, maybe even a Peltier, or you're looking at Monahan and you build out something else from there.
See that's a difference. I wouldn't want to do that. If I was True Living, I wouldn't even want to talk about giving up that much for a Seth Jones.
Devin hates big trades.
I love big trades. What I'm trying to get at you, Sean, is that I feel like if you're going to try and get a Seth Jones, one of your core pieces is going the other way. Period.
Is there just to throw the Calgary part in there? Devin, just for the hell of it, just to take a couple seconds here, there is another player on that probably he got to change the scenery. It didn't work. Is there an interest in combining a Seth Jones and a Patrick Laine?
Dear Lord, what are you getting back? Like if you're adding both of those, are you getting back? Like no, there's no way you can. There's no team that can put together a package that can get a player who can a pure sniper in Patrick Laine, and our Devin says he's a top 2 right side defenseman. I say he's a top 4. Like what's that package, Kevin?
Well, Laine, he hasn't proven much in the past 2 years, Sean. Realistically,
yeah, but it's one season. It's 2
seasons. It's 2 seasons. It's 2 seasons, man. That he has not played the best that he can, and he's streaky as fuck too. The consistency isn't there.
I'm just throwing it out. I'm not saying I like it or not.
He scored 28 goals last season, Devin. Yes, streaky. A lot of them were streaky, but that's
November, man.
That's 28 goals in 68 games.
You want the consistency though within that player. It doesn't change much, but it brings them down just a little bit. It's like Sam Bennett.
That's it. That if you throw up this season, because let's say that this season he is a bit of a mess. 36, 44, 30, 28. That's Patrick Laine's goal totals. And you're saying that he's not going to get? He got Pierre-Luc Dubois, who is a top 6 center return.
Yeah, what the fuck is he doing right now?
A top 6
what is he
center
doing right now?
Playing in the second round of the playoffs.
Yeah, but I would say that not because of him. Not because of him, Kevin.
Can we stop looking so short term and so that in this? Pierre-Luc Dubois is still a young fucking guy. We talked about how it takes years and time for defensemen. Same thing with centers. And then you throw in the package that would have to take to get Jones and Laine would be massive. Fucking massive.
See, I love big trades, and I love the entertainment of it. I don't think that the Flames. I would love for the Flames to go after Seth Jones. I don't think they should. I don't think they have the package to do it. Because it would
Monahan, Anderson for Seth Jones.
That's not even.
I don't think
deal, man.
I don't think it moves the needle. I think you still would have to add a draft pick or a pretty high prospect in there.
I don't think so, because you're getting
you're underwhelming Seth Jones.
You're getting a second pair defenseman in Anderson. You're not necessarily replacing Seth Jones, but you're getting someone who can play in that top four. Plus, you're getting a top six center, which is a big need for Columbus.
Here's the other question though with Seth Jones, and I think this happens with both Vancouver and Calgary, and this is an important question. He's an American. Does he want to sign? And you have, because if you're making the trade, you have to do the extension.
If you're making a trade, you have to know that he's willing to talk.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I would be. I don't think either. I agree with Sean and I agree with Devin. I think Benning and Treliving will be in there. I think the Oilers will get into this as well, but I don't think he's going to end up on a Canadian team.
All right, that's the least thing that the Oilers need to do is go after a defenseman when they've got that. They've got the pieces for that blue line. If they're going to make a big move, it's to get a goaltender. A long-term solution in net.
Did you listen to Ken Holland's
big move?
Did you listen to Ken Holland and what he wants to do?
He wants to bring back Mike Smith for
I know exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Once Mike Smith and Kotkaniemi is done, then he's going to look for a big name goaltender. But until then, that's not going to happen. But that's only 1 year away.
If they make a big move for a big player, that's who it's going to be. It's going to be for a goaltender. When you look at their roster, what they need is depth. They've got the big names. They've got the number one defenseman in Darnell Nurse. They've got two of the top five players in the world in McDavid and Draisaitl. They need depth. They need to use that cap space that they have to build the depth, to be able to not have to worry about McDavid and Draisaitl having to play every second shift.
They need
forward. That comes with defense too, though. What defense do they have there outside of Nurse? Ethan Bear, he's a good prospect, yes. Broberg, he'll come up
more than just a good prospect. He's a good player.
Just let me fucking talk.
Coming up.
Yes, Sean. Thank you.
Philip Broberg, man. They're high on Philip Broberg.
Okay. Let's I mean, I just that's where I'm looking at. I mean, there's an Edmonton's an interesting place because not depending on who. I mean, if you're believing that you got to get this done now with McDavid, and there is cap space coming out for Holland, so he has the option to do things for sure. But anyway, let's move to our final point here. According to Rick Dollywall, the Vasily Podkolzin has signed his entry-level deal. Sean wanted to cancel the game and just start talking about this now, but it's a big signing. Tyler and I were at that draft. I remember the moment that Podkolzin was drafted. There was this silence. It was like this, and then everyone just started to cheer, and then there we go. But it's a good signing for the Canucks to get him under contract.
Stephen Loudon I was watching it with him at the Pig and Duke, and he literally turned around and was like, Sean, I didn't expect him to go for them. I was expecting Newhook or Caulfield. Honestly, I thought those were the two that the Canucks were going to go after. But it's a great ad. It really helps the Canucks depth. we talked about whether or not JT Miller will be on the wing or at center. Bringing in Podkolzin allows them to do that, because allows them to keep him at center, because one of the biggest issues is that the lack of depth on wing. If they're able to find someone else to play sort of like a sort of middle six role for them on the left side to replace JT Miller, then they've got that winger depth in that top nine to move him into the middle, because Podkolzin's he's a left shot who likes playing the right side, and I know Devin's going to yell at me because I don't like that, but yeah, I think it was expected, and I think he's ready to come over and be excited and add to this young core that the Canucks are hopefully building.
Devin, anything to add?
Yeah, it's a good signing. Hopefully, he works out for the Canucks in the way that everybody's hoping that he will. So, yeah, just that's all I got.
Chris Faber.
Kevin, I know, and Devin, I know you guys are expecting something, and I said it too. I'm expecting something big from the Canucks. I just don't think it's coming from the core. I think you have to build this core up a little bit more. I think you are going to see if there's anyone that's traded. That's why when we talked about Seth Jones, I mentioned Nate Schmidt, because I don't see them wanting to move anyone else out of that core group that they're trying to build, unless they're getting an absolute like bona fide superstar coming back, which I don't think anyone's available. That's unless it's Jack Eichel. But the way I look at it is the Canucks just need to continue building this young core and making their roster a little more cap friendly, not having as many bottom six players who are making way too much. That's the biggest thing with the Canucks, is that if they can find a way to get rid of get rid of the dead weight, the Ericssons, the Beagles, unfortunately Ferland with his issues, and even Roussel, like they need to find a way to make it more cap efficient. That's the word I was looking for, efficiency. And if they can find a way to do that, then that they'll be able to start filling out that roster better. And that's the same issue with the Oilers, is that they're so top heavy that they can't fill out that roster properly, and especially up front. So, and you look at the Pacific Division next year, it's wide open. You got Vegas, you got Edmonton, and then it's wide open. Flames could bounce back. Canucks could bounce back. You could look at LA could surprise. They've got a bunch of young players. Anaheim could surprise with Zegras and Drysdale leading the way. Like the Pacific Division is going to be very fun to watch next year, because you've got the two heavyweights up top, and then you've got everyone else that could be are going to be pushing. It's wide open for the final two spots. The final confirmed spot for that, because you got the wild card situation once we get back into the normal playoffs setup, but potentially two spots in that division.
I just think it's wishful thinking that you're going to get those shitty contracts off of the Canucks books with some sort of miracle without buying them out. I don't think there's anybody out there who will be willing to extend a hand to help within that. They're going to give you an anvil if anything else. And to Jeff's point, the next 4 years is massive for the Canucks, or for the Oilers. Sorry, Jeff, I've said multiple times that I think that McDavid is going to ask for a trade within the next 2 years if he doesn't see any progress within the organization, and seeing that they are making a difference within the depth of their the forwards, and so I think that they should go for a Seth Jones. Realistically, I throw in Broberg within that, because you got to make sure that. You got to make sure that McDavid's happy, because if he's not happy, then Draisaitl's not happy. If Draisaitl's not happy, then holy shit, that dressing room is completely fucked.
I guess that's I guess my point too is I wonder what is the thinking in Edmonton? Like, is it? And I'm hoping that Ken Holland is the man of reason here, because I don't think that this is a situation where you need to throw your chips in if you're Edmonton. You really shouldn't be doing it. You don't necessarily have to. But I think reason and patience should outweigh making necessarily a huge splash. But you wonder where Daryl Cates is at. You wonder, and you're in a situation, and I'm just going to throw this out there because I think a lot of the two markets we're in, and possibly the third, the other one team, Devin, that you follow, with fans back in the stands, I think that there's going to be, I think some owners are going to want to make a really big splash that may or may not be necessary. There's going to be. I just wonder if some of these Canadian teams are going to think, let's make that big splash so we can go on a run, and we can get more fans in the stands. I do wonder if that's going to happen.
Well, if Toronto does not get out of this first round, you got to believe that within one of those top four forwards in the core, they're going to get moved. You truly got to believe that. And, one of my buddies today talked to me, and after we heard that Seth Jones wants out, it's like, okay, well, do you trade a Morgan Riley plus to get Seth Jones under contract and within that dressing room in Toronto? And I said, yes, absolutely. It's not going to be one for one, obviously, but overall, to your point, Kev, there are going to be owners who want to make sure that they are competitive within their window. And yes, money's tight, but man, banners fly forever.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think it might be a little bit wishful thinking that we're going to see owners like that make big moves. I think Ken Holland has the ear of Daryl Cates, and it's going to be build depth. That's the big thing. I think everyone knows that's the big thing with Edmonton. I don't think they're going to I don't think they're going to be looking to make a big splash to go after someone like a Seth Jones, because the price is going to be too high for them, because unless if Ryan Nugent-Hopkins was not a UFA this year, I think, and had maybe it was tied with Seth Jones in terms of contract length, I think that's where you could have that could have meshed up properly. I just don't see how. I don't see how the needs of Columbus, speaking, like you're talking about that, and like what about Columbus? What about Columbus wanting to make playoffs and make a splash, right? The only reason they sold off this year is because they were out of it. Like that market desperately wants to win.
Just reading from some of the Columbus media, though, there was a lot of conversation about get draft picks and rebuild. They were willing, and this is the next 2 years. To be fair to that, I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I don't really. I'm not saying that I have an in-depth knowledge of Columbus at all. But then, if you're going to do a rebuild, the next 2 years draft is your opportunity to do it. They have 3 first-round picks this year. Now, as is, they might be on their way to that sort of that rebuild anyway.
What's your core moving forward here? I mean, yeah, Patrick Laine at 23, Cam Atkinson, he's 31, Max Domi's 26, Oliver Bjorkstrand is 26, and Rauslovic is 24. Outside of that, well, yeah, I'm getting to that. Yeah, you got Werenski at 23, Merzlikins, Korpisalo, and those two aren't actually the two goaltenders of the potential future, because they do have a goaltender within the system that is supposedly supposed to be better than them, and that's Tarasov. Supposedly, and predicting what goalies do is voodoo. But I mean, outside of that, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they try and do a bit of a rebuild on the fly here, or retool, or whatever kind of verbiage you want to chuck in there. So I just think that they got to get a good core within that dressing room. You got to get a good winning attitude, and I wouldn't be surprised if Gerard Gallant will be the new coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets to kind of help build that up.
He returns to Columbus.
Yeah, yep. John Davison returning is huge for them. I think whoever they get as their next head coach is huge. They've got Atkinson signed for another 4 years after this at 5.875. They've got Bjorkstrand, underrated player. Like, I don't think if he was playing in any of the big markets, people would be like just praising him to no end. At 5.4 for the next 5 years, that's a great deal. Honestly, he's 26, so that he's 31 when that deal comes up. I think that's a fantastic deal. And then you've got Seth Jones is up next season. Werenski is up next season as well. They're missing a true number one center, because what they've got, Max Domi. Like, Max Domi is a really good number two center, but he needs a true number one ahead of him so that he can feast on the lesser matchups. Rauslovic is someone who can build you can build into a good 2C, I think. But they don't have that true number one center. They traded Johansson away to get Seth Jones. They have to figure out what they're doing with Laine. They have to figure out what it's a bit of a mess down in Columbus, but I still think that they're going to desperately want a good center or a replacement defenseman in return for Seth Jones if they trade him. It's not going to be pure futures in that trade.
Yeah. Fair. By the way, just to quickly go back to Podkolzin. Chris Faber has been following Podkolzin season in Russia, so follow him. He has some really good insights into who Podkolzin is. Friend of the podcast as well. Maybe just quickly, just before we wrap up here, the second round has also started tonight. The Boston Bruins, on the strength of David Pasternak's hat-trick goal. He's got to wear that suit again. That's an amazing suit. That's an amazing suit. I got to get me some suits like that. I'm trying now that this.
Devin, have you seen that suit that Pasternak?
No, I haven't. No.
It was.
I'll pull it up.
He'll pull it up, yeah. But the Boston Bruins beat the New York Islanders to win Game 1. So that series, the Bruins are up. And tomorrow, probably, I think everybody is salivating over these two matchups. Tampa Bay, Carolina starts at 2 Pacific, 5 Eastern. Vegas, Carolina after that. Devin, I was wrong. As we look at David Pasternak heading into the TD Garden.
Look at that suit. That's amazing.
That's a beauty suit.
But Devin, I was wrong. The Vegas Golden Knights defeated the Minnesota Wild. I was wrong. That happened.
Well, you're right with Tampa Bay, so I'll call it even.
Yeah, there we go. But I started here. I'm going to still stand by my pick. I'm picking the Islanders to beat Boston. I just think that they know how to win. I think it's going to be a really tough, rough series. But I'm going with the Islanders. Long series there. I'll start there. I don't know where you guys are at with that, but
yeah, I have the Islanders as well.
I love that series. It's old school hockey. I hope the Islanders win because fuck Boston. I'm a Canucks fan, so fuck Boston. But yeah, if Pasternak's playing the way he is, it's going to be tough to beat him.
Yeah.
But Carolina, Tampa, and Colorado, Vegas are going to be so fast and so fun to watch.
Well, that Tampa Bay Carolina series, as much as everybody's talking about the skill, which will be there, that series is going to be nasty. That series is going to have an underrated, vicious nastiness. Marty Necas does not get enough credit for being a rat in this league, but he is a rat. And I say that as a compliment, by the way. But to me, I look at that. I know Carolina is the home team, but Tampa Bay with the experience, I just got to go. I got to stick with them. I'm thinking Tampa to beat Carolina by a long series.
Once again, I got to go Carolina, man. I like I said, I don't know if it's a bias between being a Calgary Flames fan and going back to 04, but I think that Tampa Bay is just, I think they're overrated overall. Yes, they have the experience, but I love the underdogs of Carolina, so I hope that they can pull it off, especially with Nedeljkovic back there, and there's just the fact that how could you not like Rod the Bod? Honestly, he's such a goddamn beauty.
Fair. I love Rod the Bod.
I love Carolina's blue line. There's no blue line that I would take over Carolina's, and they're what, 8 deep? Like it's insane. Dougie, Slavin, who should, it's a crime that he hasn't won a Norris yet. It's just because he doesn't put up the points. Brady Shea, Brett Pesce, 2 guys who I don't think people realize how good they are. Gardner, he's overpaid, but they're playing him in a third line role that allows him to be effective. Then you've got Yanni Hakanpää and Jake Bean, let alone Maxime Lajoie, and it's just they've got the depth on that blue line that I just. Plus, they're the jerks. I'm team jerk. Devin knows that.
Devin's nodding. Here's a fun fact. We've always laughed about the Thatcher Demko Mason McDonald pick. Who was just the next pick for Thatcher Demko? Alex Nedeljkovic.
And he was on waivers this year. I don't know if anybody knows that either. Anybody could have had him.
I thought about that, yeah.
Anybody could have had him.
I'm sticking with Tampa, but it's going to be. I would not be surprised if Carolina wins, but I'm sticking with Tampa. Colorado, Vegas. I think everybody is loving and excited about this series. But I don't think that this is going to last as long as people think. I just think that Colorado is so much better than Vegas, especially up the middle. Vegas has a hell of a time scoring. Yes, they scored 6 goals, but they can't seem to. They have a bit of a leaf problem in that they can't seem to put teams away. And I think Colorado is going to take advantage of that. And I don't think that this series is going to be as long as people think. That's my hot take. Hot take hockey.
Yes, I agree with you. When you look at the center depth, I think that's the biggest difference between those two teams. You've got McKinnon. They've brought in Newhook. They've just got up front there. It's really good for Colorado. But without Kadri, that's the big difference that could change what you're saying there, Kev. Because Kadri's out for another 6 games? 5 games?
It's an 8-game suspension. He missed one, so he would miss he actually would miss the entire
series. So that's the big that's the big thing there is Colorado's center depth takes a huge hit with Kadri gone. So if they had him there, I think what you said is correct, but I think with him gone, I think there's a little bit more of an opening for Vegas to at least make it a long series, if not surprise a lot of people and take that series.
I think if it was the Vegas of 2 years ago, I think it'd be a very intriguing series and very fast paced. But I mean, we talk about depth. Depth is more so past the first two lines. So if you're talking about center depth and Kadri is your second line center, then what depth do you have if you're writing them off, or not writing them off, but if you're thinking that that's not going to be, yes, Kadri, he's an effective player when he's not fucking around and getting suspended, but if you're talking about depth, then that's what you need within the playoffs. So we got to plug and play and hope for the best. But I think that Colorado does have this within 5 or 6 games.
I like Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, and I really like JT Compher and Tyson. Yeah. I love that up the middle, actually. I don't think they need Kadri up the middle there. Tyson Jost is strong. Pierre-Edouard Bellemare is strong. He's kind of like the Anthony Beauvillier of the West. Like that type of player. I'm a big Anthony Beauvillier fan. Like, I would love to have him on any teams I follow. I'd love to see Anthony Beauvillier.
I'm just glad you're saying his name and not me, because I always butcher his name.
I'm a professional. I'm soon to get a diploma at a professional broadcaster, so that's why.
I'll let you and Devin say his name, because I've been running it through my head ever since I saw him score for the Islanders today, and it still takes me 3 times to say it. I just, for some reason, I just can't do it. It's like when last playoffs when you couldn't say Hudobin.
Hudobin, yes. What is that? Budobin, yes.
Yeah.
I have a diploma soon, so that's gonna be evidence. Let's leave it there. We will not be back tomorrow morning at 11. We're going to have a sleep. We all need a little bit of a rest and got some other things going on, but we're back. Are we back Monday night, Devin, or Tuesday morning?
Let's play it by ear, but either one of the two.
Okay, we will recap Game 7 of the Habs and the Leafs, and then we're also going to be live on air for the draft lottery. Wednesday, June 2nd is the draft lottery. It's going to be very interesting to see who gets where are the Canucks going to pick, where are the Flames going to pick, where's Columbus going to pick, as they are in the lottery. Where's Buffalo going to pick? Be fascinated. But how do we follow everyone?
Sorry, before Sean goes, it's going to be Monday night. Sorry, Monday night is when we will do our recap.
Monday night after the Habs and the Leafs.
And before we go off, I want to say thank you for everyone who came on from the Hot Take Hockey Raid, and for everyone who subscribed. I think we were at 108 before, and we're at 125 subscribers on YouTube now. That is fantastic. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you very much.
And you could follow me at BeardyCanuck03 on Twitter.
I'm GordHowe09 on Twitter.
Tyler, TNOBLE, Schneids, Chris is Schneids, SCHNEIDZ. I have to say a happy birthday to Hannah. Happy birthday. Oh, but also before, can I just say a shout out to friend of the podcast, Derek Lee. His daughter has been going through some really tough times. Just wanted to say our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family as he's going through that. Him and Shane Ryan are part of the Sens Hour, so just a shout out to them as well. And so I am KVLE podcast _hockey. Facebook.com, The Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com, The Hockey Podcast. I leave you with this. It's like talking to friends. Thanks, friends. We'll talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.